All right, hello everybody. So today we are going to review two units, the first two units we did in the course. The first one was on proportional reasoning, and the second one was on finance, specifically all around income and how you can earn an income. Okay, so we'll start with the first one, which was on proportional reasoning. Okay, and you may actually, good idea, want to have a little piece of paper handy so that you can jot stuff down as you are going. Okay, and what I'll do is I'll also create a PDF of this document so that you can have it all in one place as well, but it's helpful to make notes for yourself as you're going. Okay, so a couple things that we talked about at the beginning, and by the way, this is just a brief summary. It's not going to encompass everything that we did in the unit, but it's kind of a nice snapshot. Okay, the first couple things that we talked about with regard to proportional reasoning was we talked about what's a ratio and what's a rate. Okay, so a ratio is a numerical comparison between two things that have the same unit. My dog's barking. Sorry about that. So for example, maybe you're looking at 5 green marbles to 2 yellow marbles. Okay, so the units are the same because they're both marbles. You're just looking at the numbers of different colors. Okay, a rate is a numerical comparison between two things with different units. Okay, so for example, let's say you go 100 kilometers in 2 hours. Okay, well, the two different units there are 100 kilometers, so distance. Kilometers would be distance. 2 hours, hours is time. Okay, so the two units are distance and time. Okay, now this is a rate, 100 kilometers to 2 hours. We could also express that as a unit rate. The unit rate for this example that I just gave you above would be 50 kilometers per hour. And that's because the second unit is per 1 hour. Okay, the second unit is 1. So a unit rate is when the second unit in the rate is 1, right? And how did I get the 50 kilometers per hour? I just went 100 divided by 2 is 50 divided by 1, okay? So that's a unit rate. Now, we also spent some time talking specifically about unit price. And a unit price is a type of unit rate where you're looking at how much is it per one item. So let's do an example. Let's say I said I wanted to know what is the unit price if, I don't know, 5 cans of tuna costs $7.42. Whoops. Okay, what's the unit price if 5 cans of tuna cost $7.42? Well, we can use something called proportional reasoning to figure this out. And proportional reasoning essentially means we're setting two either ratios or rates, proportions, because we're doing a comparison, equal to one another. Okay, so what do we know? We know that we've got $7 $1.42 per 5 cans. And we want to know, what is that? How many dollars? So that's what we're looking for per 1 can. Because the unit rate, the second unit must be 1, right? Unit price means per 1 can. Okay. Now, what we can do now, it is basically use, basically just solve this equation, right? How do we solve for x? Well, basically we're just dividing x by 1 here. X divided by 1 is just x, because anything divided by x is just itself. So we actually have already solved for x, right? X divided by 1 is just x. So the right side is already x. To get the unit price, we just need to go 742 divided by 5. So I'm going to pull up my calculator, which is here. And I'm going to go 7.42 divided by 5. And I get, oh, evaluator's not ready. What's going on? 1.484. There we go. Okay. Now, this is 1.484. Okay. Now, that's not exactly my answer because this is a contextual problem. So I have to think about units, right? What is my units here? It's a rate. So it should be dollars per 1 can. If you think about money and how many decimal places we can have for money, we have 2 decimal places for money. So if this number has to end here, the number to the right of it is a 4. So that's going to round down, meaning that this is going to stay as an 8. So the answer should be $1.48 per can. Okay, so that would be something called a unit price. And what's really helpful with unit prices is that we can actually use the unit price to compare. So let's say at the store, one deal is that you can get 5 cans for $7.42 or 3 cans for, I don't know, $4.75, let's say, right? Well, you can find the unit price of each of those options, and then you can compare based on the unit price, which is the better deal. Okay, so these are a few things that we could do using proportional reasoning. Okay, the other type of question that you could do using proportional reasoning is you could do something like this. Let's say I had something like, I don't know, a recipe uses 2 cups flour and 3 eggs. Okay. How many cups of flour would you need if you used, I don't know, let's say 10.5 eggs. Let's say you broke an egg in half and just used half of it. Okay, and the idea with recipes is that you can double them or triple them or whatever, as long as you keep the ratios of all of the ingredients the same. Okay, well, we can set up a proportion here. So normally we have 2 cups flour to 3 eggs. Okay, that has to equal the same proportion as what we're going to do with when we scale up the recipe. Well, how many eggs are we using? We're using 10.5 eggs. What we want to know is how many cups of flour do we need? So this is our x. Okay, that's our unknown. Now, how do we solve for x? And basically what I'm doing here is I'm setting up some equal proportions, right? This is x cups of flour. So 2 flour to 3 eggs, that has to equal x flour to 10.5 eggs. Okay, and I'm looking for how many cups of flour. Okay, now I could have set this up using the eggs in the numerator and the flour in the denominator, that would be fine. But then I'd have to flip it on the right as well, right? So the eggs would have to be in the numerator on the right side and the flour would have to be in the denominator, okay? Now, to solve, I'm dividing the flour by 10.5, the x by 10.5. So to undo that, I need to multiply both sides by 10.5. Okay, now these will cancel, and I'm going to end up with x equals 10.5 times 2 divided by 3. And if you put that in your calculator, 10.5 times 2, 21 divided by 3. The answer divided by 3, that's 7. So x equals 7. Okay, so the answer here is 7 cups of flour. Okay, all right, so that's another type of problem that we did. And then the next few sets of problems that we did involved percent. And these were also applications of proportional reasoning. So let's say, for example, a shirt that regularly costs $24 is 35% off. What's the sale price? Okay. Well, to find the sale price, we have to figure out how much are we saving on this thing. Well, we're saving 35%. Okay. How do we figure out what that 35% is? Well, 35% is a fraction, right? 35% is 35 over 100. We can set that equal to another fraction. 24 is the total. That's what we would normally pay. So that goes with the 100, right? What we're looking for is the 35%. So that goes in the numerator, okay? That's why this is an application of proportional reasoning. So it's the same type of question that we were doing above. Now, how do we solve for this? Well, we multiply both sides by 24. Because we're dividing by 24, these cancel, and we get x equals 24 times 35 divided by 100. So 24 times 35, 840 divided by 100, 8.4. Okay, so x equals 8.4. So that's actually $8.40. Okay, now that's how much you're saving, right? This is the discount. The sale price is how much you're actually spending rather. That's going to be the price, $24, minus the discount. And that works out to be 24 minus 840, $15.60. Okay, so a similar type of question would deal with tax. So maybe there's 5% GST, right? That has to be added. So you would figure out what's 5% of the price, but then instead of subtracting, you would add it on because the tax gets added on instead of taken off. Okay, so it's the same sort of idea. I'm not going to do an example of that because the calculation would be very similar. But again, you're not going to take it off, you're going to add it on. Okay, another type of question that you might get though is something like this. Let's say, I don't know, I'm trying to think of something that you might buy. I'm very uncreative these days. Let's say a pair of headphones. that regularly costs $80 is discounted by $15. What's the percent discount? Okay, well, this time we're looking for the percent. What's the percent? Okay, we don't know what the percent is. Well, a percent, like 20%, let's say, is always 20 over 100. So the percent is always given to us over 100. Okay, if that's what we're looking for, then the thing over 100 is going to be our unknown. So one side of the equation is going to be x over 100. Okay, the other side is going to be, well, the total in this case is the 80 because that's what they normally sell for. What's the discount? It's $15. Okay. Well, how would I figure this out? How would I solve for x? I'm dividing it by 100. I got to multiply both sides by 100. So cancel. And then x equals 15 divided by 80 times 100. 15 divided by 80. And then times 100. 18.75%. Okay. Okay, so that's another type of question that you could get where you don't know the percent and you're trying to find the percent. Okay, and then the last type of question that we did in this unit was currency exchange. So if you go to another country and they use a different type of currency, like for example, in different places in Europe, they use the euro instead of the dollar, then there's an exchange rate between currencies. Okay, so for example, how much would a $30 t-shirt cost in Paris if $1 Canadian equals not dollars. I'm so bad at drawing the euro sign, but it's something like that. 0.62 euros. Okay, so $1 Canadian equals 0.62 euros. Okay, how much would a $30 t-shirt cost in Paris? So in Paris, it's going to be in euros, right? We're looking for the price in euros of $30 Canadian. Okay, and this is the exchange rate. Well, in these types of problems, the exchange rate is always going to be one side of the equation. The other side is going to be, well, what are we looking for? The number of euros over what was the original price, $30 Canadian. Okay, and you can set it up either as euros over dollars or dollars over euros. What I like to do is set it up in a way where the unknown goes in the numerator. So the unknown in this case is the euros. So that's how I'm going to set it up. Okay, so the euros is 0.62 euros over $1 Canadian equals, I don't know, X euros, that's what I'm looking for, over $30 Canadian. Okay, and I'm trying to solve for X. Well, what am I doing to X? I'm dividing it by 30. So to solve, I need to multiply by 30 on both sides. Cancel. And I end up with X euros equals 0.62 times 30 divided by 1. So let's do that on my calculator. 0.62 times 30 equals 18.6, and then divided by 1 would just be 18.6. So this is just 18.6. Okay, so it's going to be, whoops, I keep writing dollars. Euros is 18.6. There we go. Okay, but it's the same sort of idea. I'm setting up this proportional reasoning equation, and then I'm solving for the one piece that I don't know. Okay, so that was basically our first unit. And now I'm going to move on to the second unit, which was on finance. And specifically, earning an income. How can we earn money? Okay, well, most common ways of earning an income are 1, salary, which means you get paid an amount per year. Okay, so let's say, for example, you earn, I don't know, $60,000 per year. Okay, well, if you wanted to know how much you earn per month, then you'd have to take that $60,000 and divide it by the number of months in a year. Right, so monthly, it would be 60,000 divided by 12, which works out to be, well, 60 divided by 12 is 5, so $5,000 per month. Okay, weekly, you'd have to take the full $60,000 and divide it by the number of weeks in a year. There's 52 weeks. Divide by 12 months, divide by 52 weeks. Okay, now this one I got to do on a calculator. So 60,000 divided by 52. That's, okay, let's work this out. 1,153.85, because there's 2 decimal places for money, and that 4 is going to round up because the next digit is a 5. Okay, let me remember that. 1,153.85. Whew. $1,153.85 per week. Okay, so that's one of the most common ways of getting paid. The second one is an hourly wage, right? So you may get paid, I don't know, $16 per hour. Okay, so you get paid for the number of hours you work. Okay, so for example, if you work 30 hours in 1 week, you would get paid, your earnings would be 16 times 30, which is, I think, 480. I think it's 480. You guys can check that. Okay. Now, one thing that can happen with hourly earnings, though, is you can get something called overtime pay. Okay, so OT pay. And you can also, the other thing that's along the same line is something called a shift premium, which is where you get paid extra for working bad shifts, like the overtime, the overnight shift, for example, or sometimes like working on a holiday, like if you have to work on Christmas Day or something like this. It's the same sort of idea. But overtime pay is if you work beyond the regular hours for a week. So let's say, for example, a regular work week is usually 40 hours. Okay. How much would you earn? Total for, I don't know, 45 hours if you get $13 per hour plus time and a half overtime. Okay. Well, when you have a problem like this, you've got to break it into two parts, right? You're getting paid two different rates, regular rate and overtime rate, right? And you work a certain number of regular hours and overtime hours. So your regular hours are always going to be how many hours did you work up to 40? And you worked more than 40. So in this case, your regular hours are the max, 40. Whoops. So here, or 40, okay? Your regular rate is $13 per hour. Okay, so your regular pay is going to be 40 times 13, which is, I don't know, 40 times 13, 520. Okay. Your overtime hours are how many hours did you work beyond 40? Well, this person worked 45, so they worked 5 hours beyond 40. So that's 5 hours. The regular rate, if they get paid time and a half is 1.5 times the regular rate. So this is, time and a half is 1.5 times 13, which works out to be 19.5. So $19.50 per hour. Okay, so the OT pay is going to be 5 hours times $19.50 per hour. So 5 times $19.50 is $97.50. $97.50. Okay, what's your total? It's going to be this plus this. And I think that comes out to be, $617.50. I think, if I'm doing my mental math correctly. Okay, but you can check that on a calculator. Okay, so that's a really type of common question when you have this wage situation, the hourly wage. Overtime comes up quite a bit. Okay, the other type of really common thing that you could get is something called commission. And a commission is usually people who work in sales, and they would get a certain percentage of what they sell. So this is usually people who sell really expensive items like cars and houses and things like that, really fancy electronics maybe. So for example, a real estate agent is paid 1.5% of their sales. How much do they earn on a house that sells for $550,000? Okay, well, what we're looking for here is 1.5% of $550,000. So this is really similar to the other percent problems that we were doing in the first unit, right? 1.5% as a fraction is 1.5 over 100. We want to know how much is that over 550,000. Okay, how do we solve that? We multiply both sides by 550,000. Okay, so these are going to cancel, and we get x equals 550,000 times 1.5 divided by 100. So I'll do that quickly. 550 with 3 zeros times 1.5 equals, and then divided by 100. So they would earn $8,250. Okay, so if a real estate agent sells one house per month, they're actually doing pretty good, right? That's not bad. $8,000 plus per month, not bad. Okay, so that's how commission works. And then there's other types of pay that you can get as well. You might get something like a bonus. You might get isolation pay if you work like isolation pay. If you work in a really isolated area, although we should all get isolation pay right now because we're all pretty isolated. You might get danger pay if you do a really dangerous job. You might get something like that. As I said, you could get a shift premium, which works very similarly to overtime, where you get like time and a half if you work a really bad shift, like the night shift or a holiday or something like that. So there's other types of things that can happen as well. You could get a contract work where you're putting together a contract and you're hiring workers and you have to pay them and you have to buy materials. So there's other ways to earn income as well, but these are sort of the more common ones that come up. Okay. Then the last thing that we talked about in this unit were deductions. And this is money that comes off your paycheck. Okay, so the total amount that you're paid is called your gross pay or your gross income. Okay, and then deductions, the three that everybody have to pay are income tax, right? And this is both federal and provincial. So federal goes to the government of Canada and provincial, in our case, goes to the Alberta government. Something called EI, which is employment insurance, so that if you happen to find yourself unemployed, then you can get some money for a few months to hold you over until you get a new job. And then the final one is CPP, which is the Canada Pension Plan, so that when you turn 65, you can get some money from the government every month. Okay, but there are other deductions that a lot of people have to pay as well. So for example, I'm a teacher, I pay union fees, I pay for a health plan and a dental plan, right? So there's other things. Oh, and I pay, of course, into my teacher pension. That's a huge one. Okay, so there's other things that I pay as well, depending on your job. But these three are things that everybody pays. And these ones are always sort of a percentage of your income. Okay, and then what you take home, right? Your net pay is what you get to take home. Or your net, I should say income, it can be called net pay or net income, is going to be your gross income minus the deductions. Okay, so let's say, for example, the question is, what's your net income if your gross income is $75,000 per year and the following deductions are taken off. Okay, so let's say we have, I don't know, 8.5% provincial income tax, 12% federal income tax, 1.6% EI, and 4.95% CPP. Okay. Well, the first thing that we could do is we could add up all of the percentages and figure out the deductions as one lump value. Okay, so we don't have to do this in 4 steps. We could add all of these up together and find the total percentage that's being deducted. Okay, so total percent deductions is 8.5 plus 12 plus 1.6 plus 4.95. And that is, I don't know, let's see. 8.5 plus 12 plus 1.6 plus 4.95. That's 27.05%. Okay, so if we want to know what's the actual dollar amount of the deductions, well, the dollar amount of the deductions is going to be 27.05% of the gross income, right? This is going to be your deductions of what's the gross? It's $75,000. Okay, so how do we find that? The same way we've been doing all of the other percent problems. So 27.05% as a fraction is 27.05 over 100 of 75,000. The 75,000 is in the denominator. That's our total. So we're looking for that. Okay, how do we solve that? Multiply both sides by 75,000. Okay, these cancel and we get, let's see, 75,000 times 27.05. Okay, so that's whatever it is divided by 100. And that's 20,287.5. Okay, so X equals 20,287.50. Okay, those are your deductions. Okay, the question didn't ask about deductions though. The question asked about how much do you actually get to take home, your net income. Well, your net income is how much did you start off with? You started out with $75,000, your gross, minus how much is getting taken off, the deductions, 20,287.50. Okay, so let's figure out what that is. That is 75,000 minus 20,287.50. And that is $54,712.50. So this total net income is $54,712.50. Okay, so that's what you get to take home at the end of the day. Okay, and that is the end of our little recap of our second unit. So I'm going to end this video and I